Hey, welcome to a late night meandering. Actually, I thought I'd go back and face something that I haven't been facing for a long time. Um, as probably most of you will know, I was a professional trombone player and singer. Well, I won't be doing any singing tonight, but I I thought I would revisit the trombone, and I haven't touched the trombone really for something like 8 or possibly 9 years. Uh, and because of that, all of the muscles around the mouth they're very small muscles. All around the mouth is how you produce the sound, and you produce it with this, which is called a mouthpiece. I've got it plugged up now with paper because I used to have it on my desk, and it was just sitting on my desk like this, and I didn't realize it had been come home for God knows what, and that little hole in there was filled with, as I say, God knows what. So I had a big clean out session. I boiled it in a pan for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I cleaned it with toothpaste. I always used to clean them with toothpaste. It's very easy to do that, and to get the paper like this, and you twist it, and then you put it in here and you twist it around, and it gets all the crap out. You'd be surprised. We often play, as professional musicians, we often play after we've eaten, and of course if we're on a gig we haven't brushed our teeth or gargled or anything like that. We just go ahead and eat. And what this means is that those tiny particles over time start to get into here, and they form a gunk, as does the trombone itself, or whatever instrument it is that you're playing. So you have to be careful, and you have to devise your own ways of cleaning the instrument out. The best way is with a rod, which is a long rod like this, and you can put paper, not paper, you can put bits of rag into the end, because it has a little eye hole like this. Put them in, and then you can ram the thing through, much like they do, say, a rifle or something like that. Well, I'll show you what the instrument looks like, and I will play it for the first time in 8 or 9 years, and we'll see. I'll stand the embarrassment, and we'll see what comes out. But first of all, I've got to unpack the instrument, which I thought you might like to have a look at. So here we go. So I shouldn't really make any great claims for this instrument. It's a Chinese trombone. I'm not going racist, but it's a Chinese trombone. They don't make trombones. The Japanese went on to start making fine instruments. I haven't owned a Japanese instrument, but I've known people who have played Japanese trumpets and trombones and been very, very happy with them. I do intend to get a good trombone eventually, but Beth and I were in Tagbilaran, and we went into one of the the stores there, and they had a music department which was quite extensive. So I went in at first just to look at guitars. A guitar is an instrument that I would give I used to say I would give anything to play the guitar, and then gradually over the years of owning a guitar and never playing it, I realized that I would give anything except one thing, and that is time. and you need time to learn. And if you've attained a professional standard, which I did, I worked professionally for many, many years, probably around 20 or 25 years in London. I did a lot of the big venues, and I worked with a lot of big bands, small bands. I used to love the idea of playing jazz. I'm not sure that I was any good at that, but I did have a good working knowledge of most kinds of music, and of course if you work in a big band you have to be able to read. I'm not sure if I would be able to stumble my way through a reading exercise right now, but we're not going to do that. So what have we got? Well, we've got a case, and here's the case. The case of the trombones. The case of the unplayed trombone. So let's have a look. Actually, this case is a cheapo case. It actually is fitted very, very nice, and but it's made of polystyrene, a hard polystyrene, dense. So it's actually pretty good for what it is. So let's unzip. And pull it open. And that's what you see. That's what you see when you open a trombone case. Now there's some stuff in here. Let me see, what have I got? I got a glove. And Pond's cold cream. Now, you really should have a special, I always used to have a thing called Trombone, and Trombone was very good. It doesn't stink with a perfume, which of course Pond's will be stinking. So there's a little pocket at the end here, which is for the mouthpiece, and then you've got the trombone, and they've made it and fitted it so that the instrument fits in there perfectly, with very little in the way of movement. So let's take the trombone out. Look at that. It's I should be ashamed of myself. It's still got the price. It's still got the price on it. Ah well. And it seems actually to work pretty nicely. Just to give you an idea, there is such a thing as, let me sit down, there's such a thing as a note being too flat or too sharp, and this is technically a very precise thing. In order for a band or an orchestra or any group of musicians to be able to play together, they need to be able to play in tune, and this is why you often see me grimacing, pulling faces when all of the kids are singing, because, sorry, but it's a fact of life that they sing out of tune. And so you see me go. Now this is the tuning slide, and you see that it's moving out. So it's moving out. As it moves out, the tubing that your note, your air is going through, is lengthened, and as it becomes longer, it becomes flatter. So if everybody's singing and or playing and they're not playing in tune, and you need to sharpen up a bit, well, you have to come in and push in there. But they usually make these instruments so that the concert A can be achieved with the tuning slide out about that much. What are we looking at? 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. That's how it's always usually on all of my instruments before. it would wind up there. And this little thing here is a weight, and it's the counterweight, so that when you're holding the instrument up like this, it's not as top or end heavy. Now that I'm looking at this, it actually doesn't look so bad, but the big decider is the slide, because if the slide is not good, the instrument is a pain to play. So let's have a look. So they got Velcro straps, and they are holding the instrument in. Now we really don't need to have the case there, because it doesn't have anything else. Now even though it's been many years since I've played, I can tell that this instrument is not going to be a joy to play. It's very heavy. I've been used to playing fine instruments. If you're playing something for several hours every day, you usually, if you have any sense at all, you invest in a quality instrument. And give you an idea, right now I'm probably looking to find a vintage King, or maybe my friend who's advised me and recommended me to get a Con. A Con and a King, these are famous names played by some of the greatest players in the world. Now, none of them are playing what this is called. What's this called in the end? What was it called? It doesn't say anything that I can see without my glasses. It's just got a pair of quavers. So I think, if I remember rightly, when I got the instrument, and as I was telling you the story of how I found the instrument, I went into the store in Taglown, and I had, just out of curiosity, I said, I wonder if they've got any trombones. Now, we had been to Cebu one time, and they had, I think it was a Japanese trombone in there, and it actually looked quite nice, but they wouldn't let me play it unless I had my own mouthpiece. Well, did I have my own mouthpiece this time? I don't think I did, or they were going to let me play it anyway. So I think I may have got this mouthpiece here, so that may be the one, and it goes in there, and then just so that I'll take it out, so that you know how this works. Actually, apart from being rather heavy, it doesn't actually feel that bad. So maybe I'm going to be ashamed of myself for rejecting this instrument for so long. Certainly I'm convinced now that even though it may not get a golden sound, which the fine trombones of King and Con and a lot of others, Vincent Bach was another one where the instruments were finely made, and it's all in the slide. So I looked at this, and let me show you. Now, when you're a trombone player, you don't let people handle your trombone, because they don't realize how gently it must be handled. Now, if you can see, so what have we got? we've got an inner slide. Now I'm sure that my friend who was advising me to get a con would know exactly how long this is, and he would know exactly how the first position was here and the second position is here, and then the third position is here, and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth, down to the seventh position right down around here. I was never very technical on all of that. Now what I've done is I've actually cleaned this when I first opened it and had a look at it when I got home. I remember that I blew a couple of notes on it way back then, 7 or 8 years ago, and I didn't like the sound of it. It wasn't my beloved King. I had a King 2B. That was my choice, and that was what I had. Now the King had a beautiful slide. This together with the outer is called the slide, and if you can look carefully you will see that the end is slightly larger. Can you see there? So this part is slightly larger than the other. So when you put the and you notice that it's not fixed. When you put the 2 in and you take it to the end there, you will come to a point where the slide, the outer, is actually running on what's called the stocks, and the stocks, as I say, are slightly larger and they reduce the amount of friction on the slide itself. So difficult to show you this, but you can actually see that the outer slide, can you see that the outer slide is gliding along on that silvered inner slide? It's usually nickel, I think it's nickel silver, and it's not touching that much. So the whole slide, especially when you have a super light slide, which I had on my lovely King, it's really not touching on that much of the inner of the slide, so you can play extremely fast. On all instruments you can play faster than you can think. Now I tried to go into this once before on a video, and people were asking me, Dill, what are you smoking? Well, I wasn't smoking anything. The fact is, if I can put that down there, the fact is that the way that the mind works when it's learning habit patterns, a habit pattern, what would a habit pattern be? A habit pattern, any group of notes put together with such precision and speed that you would not be able to think each note. Now if I sang a song to you, not a song, but if I sang a phrase to you at normal speed where you could think each note, it will be real to you. Da do dee do da, da do dee do da. Now you can easily imagine playing the first note, da do dee do da. So you'd be moving the slide, da do dee do da. Now you can do that, and you can think that, and you can think each note at once. But imagine if it was played at great speed. Doodle da, 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 doodle da. Now I cannot think about, with the mind, the brain, I cannot think those notes on what I'll call a voluntary basis, where you are starting the note and keeping it going and keeping it and ending it with full control. You cannot do that once the speed that the thing has to be played at becomes too great. So it goes outside, as if outside of the brain. Now, if you've ever seen the old-fashioned movies, Charlie Chaplin, they had a camera that was a certain millimeter. I think it was an 8mm. I'm really not sure. But it took so many pictures, it took so many still pictures per second. And because there was a big gap in between, it made the figures look as if they were doing this, right? And then later they did it so that it would take, I think, 16 frames a second. So if you've ever seen them in the editing room when you're watching a movie and they're editing and they're doing it the old-fashioned way, they'll be getting the film, and the film, well, if you're old enough to have loaded a film into your camera, you'll know that when you look at the negatives, they are in pictures, and it's a series of pictures, 1, 2, 3, and that's how the negative is made up, of a series of pictures. And then what they do is they run that through a motor which speeds them up to a point where they can simulate real action, so they can make it seem as if you are watching something with all of the gaps filled in, which actually is not true. What you're watching is a series of pictures which are being played at the ideal speed for the eye, and so it doesn't see the gap. So what were we talking about? Talking about the trombone, talking about any instrument at all. Any instrument at all. You learn the phrase, do-da-da-da-da. You learn that phrase, and you learn it one note at a time, depending on your skill level. So you would go ba-do-dee-do-da, and you'd learn each one. My camera keeps going off. You'd learn each one. So what? Put them all together, and then you learn them as a phrase. So instead of learning them da, dee, 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 you learn it as do do dee dee dee, do do dee dee dee, and that's how you learn it, as a phrase. Then you can speed it up. Now when it comes to playing that in the music, you will be able to play each of those fast groups of notes without thinking each note one at a time. Now that phrase that I've just sung, you may recognize it. Do do de de do, do do de de de, do do de 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 de, do 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 do. It's a famous tune. So you would learn that, and when it comes to the small groups, you've learned them as a whole group, and just by touching enough attention on that, you can play the whole thing without having to think of every note in the thing. So imagine somebody on violin and they're playing The Flight of the Bumblebee. Do you think that they are thinking individually each single note? I don't think so. No, they've learned it all in blocks, and then they just have to touch the energy, creative energy on it, and they can play the whole thing. So in the next video, I won't I promise that I will not play this. I won't sneak in and play it so that I know what I'm doing tomorrow. Right, but right now I am encouraged by how it feels. I think it's going to be a clunker because of the slide, but put it together like this now, and then it has a lock. You set the lock there. I should tell you that okay, well, luckily I had a look at that video, and I saw that the end finished very abruptly, not giving you a chance to end off that video. So I thought I'd come back and put this little tail end onto it.